Welcome in, everybody. I'm Larry from Leaf and Barrel. This is my buddy Bill.
Hey, gang.
And this is our fourth episode in the series where we're interviewing the principals of the cigar manufacturers that are in our humidors. Bill, today we got another dandy, don't we?
We sure do. We're going to be talking to Leroy Lamar today.
Leroy is the owner of ATL Tobacco Cigars out of Atlanta. Boy, does he have some good stories to tell.
Absolutely, he does. And we met him last year here at the lounge, and I absolutely fell in love with his stories of how he determines what he wants in his blends and how he works with Luciano to make it all happen.
So I hope you enjoy it. So we're going to bring him on now. Leroy, how are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty good.
And what are you smoking?
I'm smoking the ATL Magic.
You know, I've got to say, the Magic is my favorite.
Yeah, it's mine too.
Yeah,
But
it's pretty good.
what I'm smoking today is the ATL Black.
Okay.
Also good, a little stronger,
Yeah.
and very flavorful.
And we'll get into that in a little bit because they're very similar. And I'm smoking the Wise Blood.
Oh yeah. Well, that's very dissimilar to the other ones that you just mentioned.
It is. So Leroy, a lot of our people probably don't know who you are.
Okay.
And they associate ATL with Luciano, but you are the owner of the fastest growing black-owned cigar company, minority-owned cigar company in America. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty true. Yeah. I
Okay.
think so.
So give us a little bit of your background and tell us how you got into cigars and maybe some other interesting tidbits about yourself.
Yeah. So my background is pretty interesting. I did not start smoking cigars until kind of later in life, partly because of my background. I went to a very conservative Christian school that would absolutely frown upon my cigar use, and it was not even a thought or a thing then. But my first cigar that I ever had, I had with my dad on a cruise. We were on a cruise going to Jamaica, and he said, I got some guys that are going to play cards and smoke cigars on the deck, around whatever time you want to meet us. And I was like, great, this would be a great opportunity. I've never smoked a cigar. I'll get my first cigar with my dad. This will be great. So I get down there, and they've got cards out, which was also not allowed at my school, by the way. Can't have any cards. And they pulled out like these Swisher Sweets and things like that. And I was like, I don't think those are cigars. Like I've seen cigars, I don't think that those are them. I don't know. So as soon as we landed in Jamaica, like the first thing I did is I got off the boat and I found a cigar shop, and it was really close to the port right there. And I went in and I told the guy, I said, hey, I don't know anything about cigars, but I know this stuff that they got on this boat is not a cigar, and so I'm really looking for one. And my very first cigar purchase was a box. I bought a box of cigars. It's my never having smoked ever. I bought a box of Royal Jamaicans was the name of the brand.
Okay.
And I'm not even sure if they still exist anymore. I don't even know. But I bought this box. I went back on. My dad and I found like a really quiet deck, and we sat as the boat kind of took off and smoked cigars. And that was it after that. I was like, this is an amazing time with my dad. And this is just lovely. And so I don't remember what year it was. I guess maybe 2 years out of college. And have been smoking regularly ever since.
It's funny because, full disclosure, Leroy and I we have a similar background there, as I went to a very conservative Bible college as well. They're rival schools, but not rival schools, as we were talking. And so I completely understand about the frown that they would have. Imagine your school, you own a cigar company. My school, I've got a cigar and bourbon lounge. Holy cow. they don't want to look at what Charles Haddon Spurgeon used to say about
That's
cigars.
right.
They,
That's right.
they push his books, but they don't want to say that he was a
That's
cigar.
right. That's right.
So, so Leroy, what from college then? What was your next path to get from smoking a cigar on a boat to?
To start a cigar company.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so what happened is when after I graduated from college, I went off to seminary in Charlotte, and then I came back and I moved into a neighborhood in Atlanta that's pretty tough. It's a pretty tough neighborhood. We moved there with some other friends, and we had like this really amazing community of folks that we were in church with, and some other people from other churches. But it was just a really great community of people, and we would have dinner together as family, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. Like it was just that kind of thing, and it was the kids and everything. But one of the things that we realized was that we wanted to figure out how to be better and more intentional to the people in our neighborhood, because like I said, it was a rough neighborhood, and so what can we do in this community? And so we started a thing on Sunday nights, called Prayer and Hot Dogs is what we called it, and it was from like 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or whatever until we ran out of hot dogs, and we chose the most violent corner of our neighborhood to host this, because we felt like that was where we probably needed to start. That's where we needed to be.
right.
And so after hot dogs, after the event was over, a couple of us would retire back to either my porch or my buddy Peter's porch, and we would discuss kind of what happened out there, and it would happen over cigars and bourbon. So we would sit there, we talk about what we experienced, and out of that we started having this conversation of like, these conversations that we're having here are truly amazing. Like, we should open a lounge in our neighborhood for other people who want to have conversations like this. So the conversation actually started about opening a cigar lounge in Atlanta. And then as we started to do the research, we realized that there were like 2 billion cigar lounges in Atlanta, and said that's probably not the best use of our time and resources. And Peter suggested, he said, well, what about making our own cigar line? Like, what if we did that? And I was like, well, I don't even understand what we would do. And he's like, well, we can actually tell the story of Atlanta, tell our story. And just like we want to have these connections with like-minded people here in the lounge, we can create that same idea through the cigar company. So by creating cigars, creating blends that tell our story and tell the story of Atlanta and tell the story of what we're doing, it gives us an opportunity to bring that community together just on a larger platform and a larger scale. And so that's how we went from just being like do-gooders in the neighborhood to starting a cigar company. That's the path.
And how did you hook up with Luciano?
So that's a very interesting story. So we have been looking for cigar makers, and we had an idea for a cigar in mind. And we kind of knew what we were looking for, and so we were looking for makers that had a reputation for making in that kind of way. Like the cigars kind of had this taste profile. And we contacted the manufacturer, and he was like, I am too busy, I'm slammed. He's like, but I have a guy that I want you to get to know who could probably help you out. And his name is Luciano Morelli. So we called Luciano, and he was like, yeah, I've heard of you guys. Why don't you fly down here to Nicaragua, and we can start working on blends? And so we were like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like we we were so honored that you would do this because we knew him from the work he had been doing with Ace Prime, and we had seen him at a couple of trade shows and really interacted with him well. So we were honored to get the call. So we flew down. He picked us up from the airport, and we started heading back from Managua to Esteli. And about 15 minutes into the trip, he's like, who are you guys? And we were like, we're Leroy and Peter from ATL. He's like, you're not the guys who I thought I was supposed to be meeting. And so what ended up happening was the other cigar maker had recommended two different people. One was an offhand, like this little small company named ATL, but the other was like this really great friend who was serious about doing business, and this would be a great thing. So he thought we were the serious people, and not the one-off throwaway comment ATL people. But now he was stuck with us, right? So we did. We ended up spending the week together, and it was just a really, really lovely week. And we actually, that was the week we blended the magic. That was the week that the magic came into being. Was out of that trip, and we had after that it's just been a great relationship with him as our cigar maker. So we're very pleased with the cigars that Luciano does for us.
He's a fantastic guy, and he's when I'm talking to people about his cigars, I tell them he's not just a blender or cigar maker. He's a cigar scientist.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a true craftsman.
Sure is.
So, Leroy, I had a question for you. So, when we met previously, one of the things I really enjoyed about our conversation, we talked about how the inspiration behind some of your cigars. And you mentioned that your wife kept a flavor wheel. And as you guys were sampling all these different blends, she's really kind of the one that helps you manage that. Can you talk a little bit?
Yeah. So our team it's three of us. It's me, my wife Janelle, and our friend Peter. And we're all very, very, very different people. And I do think like that's one of the beautiful things that helps us in our journey, in our process, is to have these not conflicting but very varied ideas and approaches to the process, right? However, when it comes down to what we have decided and what we want, what we think we want, and where we think we want to go, Janelle is the one that tells us whether we actually got there or not.
Okay.
Because her palate is just much better than Peter I's palate, right? So we sit down, we have the conversation, we know what we're looking for in terms of a taste profile. We get it in the hands of Luciano or whatever cigar maker we're working with, and they start sending us kind of the samples back, and we smoke them together. But like Janelle is really able to dissect and like pull apart the nuances within the cigars to be able to say, yeah, I think this is the one that we actually want to go with, because everything we talked about, I found it in this cigar. So yeah, that's kind of how, even though her main role is kind of marketing, Janelle's like the marketing engine behind what we do. When it comes to the cigar side, and she makes sure that we actually have the cigar in the market that we wanted to create in the first place.
So in other words, she has the final say at home and at the office.
That's absolutely correct.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say, so the other thing I really appreciate about your story, Leroy, is the fact that it doesn't seem like you got into business with the idea of taking over the world. You looked at it and you said, this is my town. I want to celebrate my town, and I want my cigars to tell the story of Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, and so we didn't get in here with the idea of taking over the world necessarily. We did want to. What we felt was important was that there was a lot about Atlanta that resonates with the rest of the world, and so that there's a story of Atlanta that can connect you, that connects with other people, And it's very similar. Like if you think about Miami, right? So you just think of Miami, and you think of Miami in terms of cigars. There's a story that starts to come to mind, right? Like or Tampa. Just think about
Yeah.
Tampa. You know, you start to have a cigar story that starts to be told in your mind. And in Atlanta, when we started ATL, Atlanta had more cigar shops, lounges, and establishments than any other city in the U.S. Per capita. So we were like, Atlanta's doing pretty good when it comes to the cigar world, but I don't think anybody even knows that. Like, I don't think anybody realizes what Atlanta's doing and how important cigars are here in this town and the community around that. So how can we tell that story and invite other people to be a part of that story and a part of that journey?
That's awesome.
I've got a guy that comes into the lounge here. He's from Georgetown. He was talking to me about wanting to start a cigar lounge, and he said, "I'm thinking about Atlanta." And I said, "Nah,
Better do some market research.
no, you do
Don't think
not want to do Atlanta." I think I've got him talked into maybe Augusta.
Yeah, that could work. That would
Yeah,
be good. That
yeah.
would be good.
But yeah, I said, I just Googled it right there with him, and he's like, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah,
So Leroy, when you guys so you determined the blend, you've had the idea for the cigar, you've gone back and forth with Luciano and his team. Your wife has put the seal of approval, excuse me, the seal of approval on that final blend. What is the next step of the process, and what is your involvement once it gets handed back to Luciano?
Yeah, I mean, so when it gets handed back to Luciano and gets ready for distribution and whatnot, all the work is on that end been done. My main role, as it relates to the cigars, is the storytelling
Okay.
behind the cigars. So we kind of know where we want to go in terms of the blend and what we want to say. So for example, Larry, you're smoking what right now? You're smoking the
wise
Wise.
blood, wise blood.
So the Wise Blood, the creation of the Wise Blood was different than the creation of Good Trouble, right? So with Good Trouble, we knew, well, actually not. They're very much the same now that I think about it, because with Good Trouble, we had somebody sent us samples of a cigar, and as we were smoking it, I knew that it was a great cigar. And as I was smoking it, Good Trouble, John Lewis, came to me as I was smoking it. The same happened with the Wise Blood. So Luciano made the Wise Blood. Most of the time, we try to send him what we want in a cigar, like with the Magic. We tell him what we're looking for, what we're thinking about, and then he comes back with ideas and suggestions based upon what we send out. But with the Wise Blood, he sent that to us as well, right? It's like, I want you to try this cigar. I want you to think about it. So he sent it to us, and then I still didn't have a story in mind, but there were some tweaks that I wanted him to make. So we sent it back. He made those tweaks and sent it back. And the Wise Blood, that story just kept coming back to me over and over again as I smoked the cigar. But I was like, we can't name this cigar Wise Blood. And Peter was like, why can't we not? And I was like, well, because the story and the surroundings around this work are pretty racially charged. And I don't know if that's something we want to get into. I don't know if that's a debate we're ready to take on yet, like the whole Flannery O'Connor race debate. Like, I don't know if that's where we want to be situated. But Peter was like, no, I think that's exactly where we should be situated, right? Like part of the story and the history of Atlanta is dealing with these issues, with dealing, with these kind of tough subjects. And Flannery O'Connor does a great job of it. So if that's what you're feeling, that's what you're going with, then that's what we should do. So we all that's done kind of in house, and then it goes to Luciano, and then Luciano and the guys and Ed and the guys, they just put it on the shelf and start making sure everybody can get it.
There you go.
So right now there's people listening to this podcast and they're saying, okay, who's this O'Connor fella and what? So give us the Reader's Digest story of this.
Yeah. So Flannery O'Connor, she was a very like an early 1900s to like the 50s is when she, so I guess like early 1900s writer. They call her genre Southern Gothic.
Okay.
It's dark humor, deeply influenced by her life living in South Georgia. And she's known for, I guess her most famous book would be A Good Man Is Hard to Find. I think it's her most famous work. But her first work was this book called Wise Blood. And the story is of a young man who, when he was a little boy, wanted to be a preacher like his grandfather. But then he goes off to war and becomes very disillusioned with life and faith. And after the war, he moves to this small town in Georgia, and he's still like an evangelist at heart, but he's wrestling so much with faith that he starts a church called the Church Without Christ, and he starts it to be in direct competition with this other guy who's a street preacher in this small town, and he meets this other guy who kind of starts to follow him around, named Enoch Emery. And Enoch says that his daddy always told him about this kind of deep intuition about knowing right and wrong, and that's called Wise Blood. So the title comes from this secondary character who talks about our kind of moral intuitions, our deep moral intuitions, which kind of becomes a theme throughout the book to see how the different people, how they act morally or immorally towards others, and what that does in their lives. And so the reason that this cigar caused me to think about that is because O'Connor's writing style is very simple. It's not like deep prose or whatever. It's very simple writing style. However, there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of depth in terms of subject matter. That's just not what it appears to be on its face. And so the Wise Blood cigar caused me to think about that in very similar ways. Was like, on its face, it's kind of a mild to medium cigar. However, as you spend time with it, there are notes, there are complexities, there are things in the cigar that I just had not experienced in some of the other stuff that I was smoking at the time. And that cigar kind of called out to me, that name called out to me in relationship to that cigar.
It just turned on me. So, I get what you're saying. I'm about into the second third now, the middle third, and it just took a little switch there on me. So yeah, I can see that. Now, what about Good Trouble? You mentioned that one with John Lewis and his famous quote there. So tell us about that one.
Yeah, so being in Atlanta, so John Lewis was not originally from, I think he was born in like Selma, Alabama, or something like that, or some town in Alabama. However, he moved to Atlanta, became a congressman here, and was deeply embedded into the city. And um, when I was in grad school here in Atlanta, I was at grad school at Georgia State for philosophy. And when I was in grad school, I also worked as a barista. I made coffee. And our coffee shop was on the first floor of the building where John Lewis's offices were.
No one.
So I got the opportunity to interact with him and his team quite a lot, and even had opportunities to have some pretty pointed conversations. We didn't see eye to eye on everything, but he was always really wonderful and super cordial, and he loved my kids, like he really loved my boys, and I just found that to be incredibly refreshing. When his last days and last time in office were part of some of the most divided times. Now of course it's probably way worse. But his ability to unite the city, his ability to as they say, reach across the aisle and build those relationships. And even like I said in our conversations, I was genuinely impressed by him. There are other people from the civil rights era who I'm not in 100% agreement with the way they used what happened to them during that era, that time period. But the way that John Lewis used his legacy and left his legacy impressed me deeply. And so I wanted to honor him with that cigar. And the cigar itself, I think, kind of tells that story. It's a very smooth, a very open cigar. Before the Wise Blood, it was the cigar that I would give to anybody who was like either new to cigar smoking, or somebody trying to transition, say, from a flavored cigar like a Tatiana or something like that, and wanted to move into cigars. I would either offer a either the what was the other one I would offer? The champagne. Who makes the champagne? The 20th anniversary. Who is that?
Oh,
No,
the Perdomo.
Perdomo.
The Perdomo. So I would offer the Perdomo, or it would be the Good Trouble. And so, because I felt like it was like John Lewis. It was inviting anybody who's, whether you were kind of new to politics, whether you've been there 1,000 years, you can talk to John Lewis, and he's going to treat you right. So I wanted that cigar to kind of be that and represent that and say that same thing.
He always seemed to me as, whether you agreed with his politics or not, as somebody that he would be cool to sit down with a cup of coffee with.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah.
And he was, and we got into some pretty serious political debates. He was just all, I was like, you're not like these other guys that I'm having these conversations with. I mean, he was still a regal statesman. He was still an elder who appreciated the human being that he was sitting across with. Like, you weren't just a Republican or a libertarian like I was, right? Like, you were a human being. And in my case, I was a young African American male who cared deeply about the city, but also had similar theological. He was a pastor, so we could have interact with this stuff on a number of levels, and he was always just gracious and so I really appreciated that, which I didn't see a lot of in a lot of other folks roaming the streets of Atlanta, using the name of civil rights to kind of do stuff.
Did he or his family, do they know about the cigar in his honor?
They do. And so here's the thing: John Lewis hated smoking, right? Like he hated cigar. He hated smoking. Period. But he has a. We have talked to his family, and he has a cousin. It was really crazy. I was doing a cigar event here in Atlanta, and one of the guys at the event was like the great nephew or something like this of John Lewis. And so he was like, I gotta get you on the phone. So he starts calling family members from Alabama, like while I'm at this cigar event. So I spend the next 45 minutes on the phone with John Lewis's cousins, first cousins, like all these people, talking to them about the cigar and about what we did in his honor, and they were just like amazed. They were amazed. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Cool. Go ahead.
So Leroy, how do you determine? This is kind of a good bridge to this topic. How do you know when it's time to make a new blend?
Yeah, I mean, so we're always working on new ones. We're always working on new blends. So sometimes it's when the blend is right, that we want to kind of introduce it when it's right. We realized, and Luciano was part of helping us realize this, was like we came out with 4 cigars in the first 2 years that we were in business. Part of that was because we wanted to kind of have like an established repertoire, so it didn't look like we were just, the newcomers in. I got this one cigar. I'm trying to get it into your shop. We wanted the people to see that we take the cigar thing very seriously, and that we spend our times cultivating smoking experiences, and not just like we're just trying to get into the industry with a cigar. No, we're experienced creators around the smoke. So we wanted to launch a number of those at the same time. But then Luciano was like, you got all these cigars and not everybody doesn't know you, So you might need to spend some time like introducing this to other people before you roll out, your next ones. And so we did that. We do have, a couple of like limited editions that we have that are going to be trying to come out here pretty soon. And those will be, they're here and then they're gone. They're not going to be, kind of core line for us. But with core line, we have some ideas that we're working on. None of them are quite yet ready. But we are just kind of spending the time right now telling the story still and getting people to understand and getting to know and find themselves in the ATL story.
Are you still, at this point in time, still breaking into new markets?
We are. Yeah, we are.
Great. That's excellent.
And Leroy, I think I could speak for everybody in our lounge if you ever want to have a market research on any of your new sticks to see how they're going to go over. I think Bill would agree with me that we've got a thinking group here that would be glad to try them out for you.
Yeah, well, that's actually a good point. So a lot of times, and this happened with your cigars and some of the other, a lot of them, when we get something new in, everybody is super excited to try it, and we'll sit down in the circle, and we'll all light the same thing up at once, and we'll just go through, and everybody has an opinion, and it's
I like that.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
We give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But,
I like that.
I
want people to be honest. I mean, when we started, like we knew that we had real big shoes to fill here in Atlanta, calling our cigar ATL after after the city, and we did not want it to be a gimmick stick, right? We didn't want it to be like you can go to in the airport and there's a kiosk with a Braves keychain and an ATL cigar, right? Like we wanted to be something that had depth and meaning and really like speak to the city. So we knew that people were going to come after it pretty hard in Atlanta when we first came out, and we have been nothing but surprised and pleased at the reception to the cigars from the Atlanta community, and those people that are, Atlanta people who now live elsewhere or whatever, particularly those, diehard smokers. Like we have this one lady who lives in New York State, and she orders ATLs as often as she can. One, because she's from here, but also it lets her fight with her people up there in New York. About just, she's like, Atlanta's putting out great quality cigars. What are you doing? New York, where are you? So it's a lot of fun to to kind of see the love and appreciation that the cigar has garnered from folks around.
Are there any other blenders out in the world that you'd like to work with at some point in the future?
Oh, that's a really good conversation. Man, I don't know. There are a lot. I have been smoking some Aladino stuff recently, and like Justo and those guys make the best Honduran tobacco,
Yes,
like in the world. I would really love to figure out how to do something with them at some point. Like, it's one thing to have, Honduran tobacco in your cigar. It's another thing to have the Aladinos work with you on a Honduran cigar, right? So, like, I think that would be something that I would love to see.
Have you tried their Cameroon Puro?
Yeah.
Is that amazing or what?
Pretty good, man. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I hate to smoke them because I only got a little limited amount, but I own the place, so. So talk for a minute about the Magic and the Black.
Yeah. So
and why they're similar, why they're different.
So the ATL Black came first, and it was originally produced out of New York. It came out of what was the name of that little cigar maker? I can't think of it. There's a guy cutting down a tree right behind me, and I'm like, is this tree about to hit my pool? He is really right here.
We can use this as insurance evidence if we need to.
That's right. Everybody will know it happened. But the Black came out first, and then the Magic came out. And even though there are similar tobaccos in the cigar, like they both have the San Andreas wrapper on them, they both, I think, have Esteli in different places. Though there are different tobaccos in the guts that make them up, so it gives a different flavor profile. I think the biggest difference between the two biggest differences are in strength. Like the Black is a much stronger nicotine punching cigar than the Magic is, and then the second is the flavor profile of the two cigars. This was not what we were going for necessarily. But when Luciano blended the Magic, I don't know if he even knew that he was doing this when he blended it. But there became these kind of dark red fruit notes, like kind of cherry notes, or like in the cigar that was something that was different for me, something I had never experienced taste profile wise in a cigar. And I was like, man, this is really good. Like we need to like lay into this and see how we can accentuate that. And Luciano did that. He did a great job. And so that's kind of the differences between the two, right? So the Black is a more, I guess in terms of body, they're similarly bodied. I would say they're kind of medium to full on the body. So you're going to get the same kind of mouth feel, same body of smoke that, output when you're smoking it. But the strength, the nicotine content in the black is gonna be much more, and then you're just gonna get this really unique flavor profile in the Magic that's different. So
Yeah.
those are kind of the differences about it.
The Magic is really one of my favorite cigars in the humidor at all. So I love that, and I sell the heck out of it.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I love it as well.
That's why I'm smoking the black, because we're out of.
Yeah,
we are out,
I've
but I
got
think
the
we're coming
ball.
in Friday. So, uh, but so Leroy, let's switch gears a little bit if we can, and then we'll come back to cigars to wrap it up. But you've got a ministry there in Atlanta, and it's very unusual. So it harkens back now to your Bible school and your seminary days. Um, tell us about that.
Yeah. So back when so let's go back to the to us doing the hot dogs on the corner, because that's where it starts. Um, Back when we were doing this kind of we started prayer and hot dogs. One is a way to get to know our community and just kind of bring everybody together. Um, and we called it prayer and hot dogs because we still believed in praying over our food before we ate it. So like we would pray, and then we would eat. But then it started to turn into this thing where people started just bringing their prayer requests for us to pray. Before I was like, listen, I'm not about to tell everybody that's out here what you just told me in prayer. I will take you to the side and I will pray with you about that, but I'm not about to put that business out there for the whole community to know what you got going on. But during that time, it gave us an opportunity to meet like a lot of the kind of drug dealers that were still in our community. And one of the groups that we met were the ladies who were engaged in street-based sex work, street-based prostitution. And we started to build relationships with them as neighbors, right? Because we live in the same community, right? So they would come over to our house. They would eat with us at prayer and hot dogs. They would eat with us at their dinner at our house. And we started trying to figure out ways of helping them to get off the streets. And so we started researching organizations, and then this whole idea of like human trafficking became like this real big topic, probably like within a year of us meeting these ladies in our community. So we started connecting with like anti-trafficking organizations and whatnot. And we saw that there was a gap in services where there was nobody like there was nobody like us who was living in a community with people and could meet them where they are and could walk with them in the day-to-day where they were before they were ready to make some kind of a move to a safe house or a drug rehabilitation program or something like that. There was nobody in the street level that was trying to help them get prepared for these things. So for example, in order to go into a long-term program, you have to have an ID, and you have to have most places require an ID, a social security card, and a clean bill of health as it relates to STIs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I am somebody who's been living in the streets and decide I want to get myself together and I go show up at one of these places, I don't have any of that stuff. And nobody has helped me get any of that stuff. And so now I'm turned away from receiving help from this place because I don't have this information. And so that's kind of how we started, was making sure that everybody in the street had that information. We got your social security card, we got your birth certificate, we got you a state ID, so that when you were ready to make a move, you would have all that stuff and you could go. And so our organization started like that and then kind of grew from that. And so now we still do the same thing, but we've incorporated a 37-foot Winnebago as our mobile office that we take out, and we use it to feed folks, give folks showers, let people rest. They use it for looking for jobs. A lot of people use our address as their address, so we have a mailbox there. And we also have a small emergency safe house So when folks are ready to kind of get off the street, and there isn't availability anywhere else, we have a place where they can stay for a little while they're waiting to get into a program or transitioning into a program. And we still do hot dogs. We still do. We don't call it prayer and hot dogs anymore. We call it. It's just our community cookouts. And so we've kind of shed the vestiges of faith around it to make it more appealing to more folks that are in the street. And there are a number of faith-based organizations working in the areas where we are anyway. And sometimes they're like kind of turned off by the religiosity of things. And so we just wanted to kind of say, listen, you know, if you're not a praying person, you don't have to pray. You know, like, we're not going to make this about that. This is just a community cookout where we're inviting everybody to come out. So that's kind of the way we work. And so we started off in the street, and then we started working with clubs, adult clubs. So we have ladies that work in adult clubs that we are also helping and supporting. So like we just did a back to school drive for one of the hotels in the community that we work in. But we also had some of our dancers, they needed school supplies for their kids as well. So we helped them out as well. So we work with everybody from our community, you know, just kind of all the way up.
I don't know if you have this kind of statistic, but since you started it, do you have an idea of how many people you've helped get out?
So I'm terrible at this. So Nikki is the one who's always like, Leroy does not know anything when it comes to numbers. Like, so yeah, I'm really bad. I would say we've probably, since we started, we've probably assisted, you know, maybe 100 families. That's, you know, individual women or women and children or men. Like we work with veterans as well. We just helped a veteran get an apartment 2 weeks ago. So probably 100, 120 families that we've helped make transition. And then we work with, see, I'm lying again. So Nikki's probably going to say it's wrong. I would say, Nikki, I'm going to say we have 30 to 40 families that we're working with right now to help make transition.
Yeah.
Nikki's going to say it's more than that because it's probably true. On our roster, on our roll, we have more people on the roll. But we have about 30, 40 families that I see personally that I am in contact with, you know, on a weekly basis that we are helping kind of make transition and walk, you know.
And how many years have you been doing the ministry part of it?
So the official was 2012, but I think we started hot dogs in like 07, something like that, 07, 08. So yeah.
But in the last 12 years, you've helped 120 families, so it's maybe 10 a year.
Yeah.
And
that's making the full transition. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
that's huge.
The number of birth certificates and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's probably into the. I mean, we're probably like at 600-700 of those,
Wow.
with the vital records over the years. Because we do have people who just show up and say, "Hey, I heard you can help me get my birth certificate," or "I heard you can help me," And so we haven't really helped them transition into new areas of life or whatever.
Right.
It's just a step along a journey, but yeah.
Is there a way we can pass on some contact information that our audience might be able to help you with that?
Yeah, I mean, so our website is www.ccsatlanta.org, and that's kind of the easiest way. You can go from there to all of our social media, and reach out and contact with us. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We have a Twitter, but we don't really use it. I'm active on Twitter, but yeah, Facebook and Instagram we have those social media accounts.
Okay.
But if you go to our website, you can sign up for our newsletter and that type of thing. So yeah.
Awesome. So now we'll transition back to cigars to wrap things up. What's new coming out? You mentioned some limited edition stuff.
Yeah. So limited edition wise, we have a Lancero that we've been working on for a while. You know, people have different opinions on Lanceros, and a lot of people like them. A lot of people don't buy them. You know, um, but we have a Lancero that we've really been trying to nail down, and so that's going to be our first limited edition, and hopefully that'll be coming out.
And I'll tell you this: you can thank Ricky for the guys in our lounge liking Lanceros, and so we have them from Aladino, and some guys would smoke them, but when the West Tampas came out, our guys just went crazy over them.
Yeah.
And so now they're not afraid to smoke a Virginia Slim looking cigar.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. We have one of the shops here is called Jay's Cigar. I'm there quite a bit, and it's a bunch of hard legs in there, guys who talk crap all the time, and they started smoking Lanceros so much that when you go up by the register, they have a tall, slim humidor right by the register that is nothing but all the Lanceros that they carry. I mean, they still have them in the main humidor, but they have a Lancero thing right there, and they're always refilling that because the guys now have just become Lancero smokers.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you got the Lancero. What else? Bill brought up he asked the question, is it going to be anything similar to the Magic?
A Magic Lancero would be very
A Magic
nice.
Lancero would be good.
It would be magical.
It would be magical. I don't know if we can. That's tough. That's a Luciano question. Because one of the things about creating sizes for cigars is as you start manipulating sizes of cigars, the blends change. And so
he's a size snob.
He is.
He is a size snob. That is true. That is true. But sometimes it's valid. Trying to get the same flavor profile in, you can go a few sizes either way, right? With the Magic, I think we started out with when we were doing the test blends, I want to say we started out with a 56 ring gauge, maybe a 54. We may have started with a 54 ring gauge. So we may be able to get down to a Lancero size in the Magic with the proper cigar ratios, tobacco ratios, leaf ratios.
Well, you can make one for the leaf and barrel first, and we'll test it for you.
You guys will tell us whether this is the right.
No worries.
Yeah.
We have guinea pig written all over us.
Yeah.
Well, so wrapping up here with Leroy Lamar. Leroy, is there anything you want to throw in out there that we haven't discussed?
No, I mean I think that's it. I mean I would, like I say, I encourage people that when they're smoking the ATL cigar, like particularly the Wise Blood and the Good Trouble, they have built into them conversations, and use those cigars for that purpose. They're damn good cigars on their own, even if you take the bands off. But they're much more enjoyable if you're having conversations, the conversations around what those sticks mean with folks. And I encourage people to do that with the cigars, and don't be afraid to get into those waters. I mean, I think that's the beauty of the cigar community, is that in a cigar lounge you got everybody from every class, every race, every
cigars are the great equalizer.
They are, and so right now, given the way that our world looks, let us be that place.
Yeah, we need all the help we can get, right?
Listen, let us be that place that helps heal our world in that regard. And so use ATL Cigars as a part of that conversation to moving people forward and bringing us together.
So Leroy, just from my seat, I wanted to. So first of all, thank you very much. But when we met in person, and you were telling that the story of the your ministry and the work that you guys do, and then at some point we started talking about those two specific cigars, and that really made me think a lot about what I have come to love in my cigar journey, and that is the stories. And I think that you are an excellent brand ambassador, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank
We
you so
really
much.
do.
I appreciate it. Thank
And
you guys.
if any of our people haven't tried this yet, I know I've probably tried to shove them down their throat. And I will tell you, almost every time I talk to somebody for the first time and talk about ATL cigars, I tell them about your ministry.
Mm,
Because
thank you so much.
it's important
It
that
is.
people know that everybody thinks that cigar people are snobs and that this is a big money industry, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know they it's nothing farther from the truth. But the fact that you use part of the funds from your cigars, and I think you told me you work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in cigar office, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday
I work
on the ministry.
Monday, Tuesday is cigars, and
Okay,
then the rest of the week is nonprofit.
yeah. So that what a balance, to tip it that way. Again, the website is ccsatlanta.org.
Yes, sir.
So I encourage our people to go there, take a look at the ministry, and if there's any way you can help it out, please do so.
Yeah, I mean
And
we.
Leroy, I hope we can get you back up here into the bluegrass state here soon, and hopefully have you help us sell some of your cigars.
Yeah, I miss being up there. I miss you guys. I really wanted to come up there this year, um, and hopefully I can get up there soon. Um, my time up there was really sweet.
We appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
guys. Appreciate it.